So I'm sitting here reminiscing about the Arctic wolf hunt in Northwest Territories. Usually, as everybody knows, I write stories. This one's a little bit stranger because this story, I don't know if you'd say it doesn't have a happy ending, but it definitely was chaotic. But I thought I would spend some time and make a little video to show my videos that I took and explain kind of what happened. Probably the first thing to talk about is how did I pick an Arctic wolf hunt. Through social media, I kind of told the story as the 2 years had passed, but 18 years ago, in a bear hunt in Saskatchewan, I saw an Arctic wolf mounted in a taxidermy studio, and it was an amazing creature, pure white. It was just beautiful, and I always wanted one of them. And then one day, 2 years ago, Kyler Nelson, I was surfing on Instagram. I see this picture of a hunter with two wolves, and his comment was, "This is so much fun. Why doesn't everybody do that?" So I responded back to him, "Man, it's right. Why don't I do that?" So we started an email conversation back and forth on what it was all about, and I booked that hunt 2 years ago because he had hunters next year uh, already booked, so he couldn't take us at that time. What he said is he loved to do the hunt. He didn't make a whole lot of money on it, but he would only take two hunters a year. It was just something fun that he liked to do at the end of his season. So that's how I ended up booking that hunt. And then came back and asked James Kelly if he was interested in going, and he liked the idea, so he was signed up a few days later, and off we were going. So what's supposed to happen on this hunt is we fly into Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. It's about 1,000 miles north of Calgary, and he picks us up in a pickup truck dragging a snowmobile trailer with two snowmobiles in it, and we head up the ice roads. And if anybody's watched Ice Road Truckers, it's very dramatic story of the ice roads. A lot of it's fabricated now that I've been on the ice roads, but this is the largest, longest 600-kilometer ice road, and we follow that up till we find a caribou, and where the caribou are, where the wolves are feeding off the caribou. So the question a lot of people wonder, especially in the United States, is why would you want to hunt a wolf? They're beautiful creatures, and I 100% agree. They're beautiful, they're smart, they're probably some of the hardest animals to hunt, and frankly, from a hunter standpoint, that's why. But it's a little more to it than that. In this case, caribou herds across Quebec in the late 90s, early 2000s grew up to millions in population, and with that, the wolf population grew immensely. There was so much food that pregnant mothers were extremely healthy, so they had many more puppies than usual, and then the puppy survival rate was huge because there's just an abundance of food. So most of you call that the balance of life, or letting nature take its course. As the caribou population grows, wolf population grows, everybody should be fat, dumb, and happy. That's great, except for the fact that now the caribou population has been dropping significantly. As a matter of fact, it's closed. Hunting is closed on caribou through much of Canada now because it dropped so drastically, and they don't really know why. Could be food, could be climate change, could be predators. Likely it's probably a mixture of 6 or 7 things that are hitting the caribou really hard. But with that said, we need to thin out the wolf population. It is way too strong, and it's just going to wipe out the caribou herd. So people who say let nature take its course, that's a false statement on the back end of these things, because if the caribou population drops off like it is, the wolf population is just going to finish it off before it starts dropping off. And as long as there's food there, there's going to be healthy wolves, but they're not going to quit eating until the caribou are gone. So there's a huge push in Canada to decrease the wolf population. Matter of fact, to the point where the government's got involved. And in this case, when I signed up 2 years ago, I expected to pay a tag fee and a trophy fee. And as you can see by this piece of paper, those are now free. They want hunters to come, and that's just basically a small game license to hunt wolves, but everything else is free. And as we got closer to the caribou, a couple hundred kilometers up the ice road, you'll notice that there's a sign here that basically there's an incentive program to hunt these wolves. In fact, we had to come to a check-in station to check in what we were doing and then check out, hopefully with wolves at the end of the day. But they monitor us pretty closely because this is a significant problem. And what you're going to find happening if people don't hunt these wolves and they don't do it through hunting conservation, there's going to be sharpshooters strapped to helicopters and they're going to shoot them and leave them lay, which is absolutely a crime in my mind. These animals are beautiful, and if I could preserve one in my living room, why not? Not really hurting the population by any means, because if I was to take 2 wolves out of the pack, then that's not a big dent into the population. And just some fun facts. I did a little research, found a study that people have done that a wolf eats 0.08 caribou per day, plus or minus, I think 0.04, which doesn't mean a lot, but if you do the math, that comes down to a caribou every 12 and a half days. So in a 365 day period, you're talking about 30 caribou per wolf. So you run into a pack of 10 wolves, that's 300 caribou per year. So taking a couple out significantly helps the caribou population. I mean, in the first year, you're saving 60 caribou. If you happen to take females out, the amount of caribou you're saving is exponentially greater than that as the years go on. So this is a big deal, and it is important to save all animals, and that's what conservation is all about, is to manage the population to healthy standards, not let things run wild. So how did the hunt go? As all hunts are, getting prepared in anticipation of it over 2 years, and especially the last few weeks, is a lot of fun. I know we packed and repacked and studied and tried to get their baggage down. I've done videos on how to pack for this hunt and what I would wear. That all worked out really well. But again, we drove to Toronto. Reason I drove to Toronto is it's much easier to go through customs to get your gun in the country on the ground. You can do it through the airports, but it's just a lot more hectic, and if you have a delayed flight, you can miss your other flight. So go to Toronto, leave the truck there at a hotel, at a park and sleep. So basically, for the price of a hotel you're paying for parking, it's ultimately free. Fly to Calgary, and then from Calgary, it's 1,000 miles due north toward Arctic Circle to land in Northwest Territories at Yellowknife. The population of Yellowknife is about 20,000 people. The population of the whole Northwest Territories is a little over 40,000 people. So almost half of the people that live in Northwest Territories live in Yellowknife. So it's actually a relatively decent sized city stuck in the bitter cold and snow, but it had all the things of home, decent hotels and places to eat and stay, and there's a lot of tourism there. The only change of plans was to Kyler set up two pairs of hunters, two hunting rigs. We hunted with a police officer who was on vacation and a gentleman from basically lives in the Arctic Circle, which was pretty cool. And then Kyler took the other pair. So to split up, we didn't want to run the ice roads, together, because we're basically hoping to be the ones that trip across wolves, within eyesight of the ice roads for the most part, at least until we get to the caribou herd. So we ran a different ice road south of Yellowknife called Slave Lake in the morning for about pretty much the better part of the morning. Kind of to waste time, and they had seen wolves down there. There's a lot of fishing going on, so there's a lot of food on the ice, and but that didn't prevail. But the following videos are kind of some of the scenery from running Slave Lake. So that afternoon we headed up the real ice road, which is the largest ice road built, 600 kilometers long, typically. What it's for is there's some diamond mines up toward the Arctic Circle that need supplies. They build this ice road to be able to truck those supplies up there through basically 2 months a year, from February to March is the only time they can get the ice thick enough to be safe for the truckers. I read somewhere that they need at least 39 inches to be safe. We're looking at between 5 and 6, maybe 8 foot of ice. Just some stats that I thought were pretty cool. The poor truck drivers can only drive 25 kilometers per hour, so that's like 15 miles per hour. I didn't do the math on that, but it's pretty close. They take 150 loads per day. In 2019, they ran 7,489 loads up the ice roads, which is just an incredible operation. It's pretty cool to see. Most of the trucks that we saw are running doubles. And again, going that slow for 300 kilometers or 400 kilometers must be mind-numbing. The reason they build the ice roads is 85% of the road is over water, because it's basically covered with lakes, and it's obviously a whole lot easier to have smooth roads over water than land. And then I know there's 50 or 60 land crossings that we went on. But following videos are some of the scenes that we saw, and it was pretty incredible to see this much desolation, this much cold. We're probably around 30 below most of the time during the day. I think it probably was like 45 to 50 below at night when we camped. So again, the plan is to drive up the ice road, find the caribou. Where we find the caribou was the wolves. The problem is the caribou were way up the ice road, so it took us about 11 hours of driving on the ice road to get to where we started spotting some caribou. But a couple of things started happening that were starting to make us nervous. One, we were listening to the CV chatter of the truckers, and they were talking about a huge storm coming in that was going to close the ice road. Of course, you're listening to truckers that are driving 25 kilometers per hour. They got a lot to talk about, and getting true facts was really not possible. So we get up there to dark, we find caribou. We really wanted to spend the night, hunt the next day, but with the weather happening the way it was, we decided we better at least head toward town, because if the storm blew in what they were talking about, we could get trapped. They were talking about snow and 80-mile-an-hour winds, and the chatter was this was the worst storm that hit the ice road in 6 years. So we started to get a little bit nervous. Might be kind of fun. So heading back south in the dark, we drove for a while, pulled over once to talk about camping out, but we were still in the no tree zone. So basically it was wide open. There was no protection from the wind at that point in time. I wasn't real comfortable with it. I struggle with, and I got somebody else with me making decisions for their safety. We had a little chat and decided to drive farther south. Again, we were probably 10, 11 hours from town, so it wasn't like we really wanted to drive all night, but we didn't know what we were in for. So about 1 o'clock in the morning, we did make it back to the trees, found a cozy little spot that looked like we'd be out of the wind for a while. We decided to set up camp and spend the night. Setting up camp seemed like a challenge at the time when you're talking probably 50 below outside. The trailer was ice cold. I mean, everything was frozen rock solid in the trailer. Snowmobiles didn't want to start, so we had to drag them out off the ramp so we could make room to set up some cots. Tried to fire the heater up, didn't seem like it was working, but truthfully it was working. But when you're heating up minus 50 degree temperatures to minus 47 degree temperature, it sure the hell doesn't feel like it's warming anything up, but after a while it did start to catch up. So we were a little bit of a panic in there, not thinking the heater worked, and we had a secondary heater that they couldn't get started, probably because the gas was froze. So it was not looking good for spending the night for a while, but after some trials and tribulations, we did get some cots set up, and the heat did come on, and it was actually pretty comfortable. So the next morning we woke up expecting blowing and terrible snow, go outside, and it wasn't bad at all. It was actually a pretty nice morning, and this is what it looked like before we packed up and started hunting our way back into the town. A few hours heading back south, we finally got pulled over by security, and they handed us this piece of paper that said that the road was going to be closed and we had to get off. They weren't going to support any life on the road, so you didn't want to be on it because you're going to be on your own. So it was the good thing about this was now we knew for sure that we had to get off the ice road and there was no more guessing. The bad thing was we had to get off the ice road, and it did not look good. things are looking pretty grim at this point. They're advertising a 2 to 3 day storm with high winds that's going to blow the ice roads in, and it could take, 2 or more days to clean this road up. We are on day 2 of a 5-day hunt, and we're probably not going to get back up the ice roads. So now we're back into the gray area again. Do we just take our chances, stay in a hotel and spend extra money and wait and see what happens? Do we go home? I don't like gray areas. I'm a black and white kind of guy, so it was just pretty frustrating for me. But we did decide that we're going to at least stay one day in a hotel and see what happens. Of course, the beautiful thing about being out where there is no human beings and no way of communicating back to the public except for our inReaches is the fact that we didn't know what the coronavirus was doing in the United States and at the border, and we're kind of being ignorant of it. About being in a hotel, we made the mistake of turning the TV on, and it did not look good. I don't know if it's sensationalism or what the deal was, but they're showing airports that were chaos. They're talking about borders closing. They're talking about canceling flights, and we're looking at each other going, we don't know what the hell to do. We really want to go wolf hunting. We don't even know if we possibly can go wolf hunting, and felt like the right thing to do was to go home. So we spent one day in the hotel, decided that the weather wasn't too bad quite yet, and did get another chance to run down the south ice road to get a little hunting in and at least get outside. But we could tell that the wind was picking up. By the time we got done, it was obvious that the winds were up there 50 miles an hour. Things are starting to drift and blow, and there's some whiteout conditions just before we got back into town. So these next videos are kind of the end of the road whiteout and a little tour of the original part of Yellowknife when it was first established, and then we're confined to hotel rooms for the rest of the night.
I think what we'll do is we'll pull up a little ways here and then we'll pull over and stop in 15-20 minutes.
See this every day, but like this just blows my mind the way people live.
Yeah, this is kind of the eccentric area of town.
Wolf.
The next morning, the storm seemed to pass. I mean, the weird part about all this is all this chatter was going on, and the sun was out and shining. It was beautiful. It was cold as hell, but we expected it to be cold as hell. Wind was blowing. I don't think the wind probably ever stops up at the Northwest Territories. But we got word from Kyler that he had talked to somebody on the ice roads, and they thought that they were going to get it opened up toward the end of the day, so we would be able to go up, which would have been our 4th day of hunting, get up there, at least hunt our way up to the caribou, and then we would have to hunt our way back on our last day of hunting. So it wasn't the greatest circumstances, but maybe we're going to get to go hunting. So it was around noon. I made the mistake of turning the TV on and watching the news, and all that bullshit about the virus started getting in my head. Trudeau was coming out at 1 o'clock to make some announcements. Still looking bleak. We're still questioning in our heads whether we're doing the right thing, whether we could actually get back into the States. But we're going to get some new tires on the truck because we did have a flat tire on the ice roads, which wasn't much fun. Then that afternoon, we're going to head back up, see how far we could get, try to get as far as we could so we could hunt the next morning. I don't know, it was about 1 o'clock. Kyler called me up on the phone and says, I don't know what to tell you guys, but the word is that if you came into the territories within the last 2 weeks, they want you to self-isolate for 14 days, or they want you to get the hell out of town. Obviously, at $200 and some Canadian, I wasn't going to spend $3,000 to stay in a hotel for 14 days. Not something that I wanted to do. So talked to James. I think he was wavering at the time too, and we said to hell with it. We got on the phone, changed our flights, and in 2 hours we were on an airplane coming back home. Then it was over. Just what I saw from the airport and the border, it was really pretty much standard procedure. Everybody's wearing gloves and masks and hand sanitizer, but this is a very small airport, a Yellowknife, because you're out in the middle of nowhere. So that one went pretty smoothly. The plane flights were half full, so we were able to, sit pretty much apart from people, so that wasn't too big a deal. But I didn't see any panic or any worries. We got back into Toronto at 1 o'clock in the morning, got to the border at 3 o'clock in the morning. They literally could give a shit that we were even there. We got a whole back seat full of firearms. Guy asked what we were doing. We said, coming back from a hunt. Do you got guns? Yep. We're right back here. All right. You go on. Didn't even check our guns. So I'm just a little bit flabbergasted of them not caring about anything at the border. But nevertheless, we're back in New York soil and home safe. I can tell you one thing for sure, looking out this window, that when crazy shit like that's happening in the world today with this virus happens, I do feel real comfortable sitting in Chubb Hollow with my neighbor so far away and knowing that I got food. You can see there's geese out there that flew in for the spring, so if I had to, I could hunt geese. Right now I don't have to do that because I really don't know I want to hunt geese. But we could survive here in the country, so life is pretty good when there's chaos in the rest of the world. So the other two hunters were able to stay. I don't know if they had pain getting home. Their time was a lot more flexible, and they didn't seem to have too many cares in the world about getting back home, so they did stay, and they're both successful. So the fact of the matter is, you can get wolves in the North territories, and Kyler definitely knows what he's doing, so I would not be hesitant to hunt with him. But this is one of my wolves from Alberta. I'm not going to be greedy. I did not get a chance to get one of these pure white wolves, but I do have two in my collection that I feel pretty good about. Adding two more would have been awesome from a hunter standpoint, but it is hunting. This is the second of the two wolves I got in Alberta. Actually, Todd Bunnage had sent me a message because we've been Facebook friends for a long time, and he had said that it took him 15 years before another person had shot two wolves at one time, and it was actually a woman hunter, which was pretty cool, and he had sent me a picture on the way. So getting two wolves at a time is pretty rare, especially in Alberta. It's tough hunting. So I was pretty excited with a chance of potentially getting two Arctic wolves at the same time. It would have been probably a feat that most hunters would never get a chance to do. But as it is, it's hunting. We weren't successful Odds were extremely against us through weather and the virus, and you can't really do anything about that. It is what it is. It is painful. Um, I don't like to fail, but damn, I've been very lucky of not failing either. So with the state of the world and the way things are today and what's going on with this virus, I got nothing to complain about. So I can tell you right now that day and a half, 2 days on the ice roads was an amazing experience. We got to see Wolverine tracks, saw Wolverine running across the ice. We saw lynx, we saw caribou, we saw Arctic foxes. Just being out there where no one possibly lives is incredible. To see the ingenuity of building these ice roads and keeping them maintained for the truck drivers to support something that's so far up north was incredible. Hanging out with the other hunters, and Kyler and his crew was amazing. Sam, my guide from the Arctic, was a pretty cool dude. I'd ask him what was the population of his village, trying to figure out how things lined up, and he turned, looked at me and smiled. He says, well, right now 2, because I'm here. He says, I left my wife and my daughter there, but usually in the wintertime at this time of year there's only 3 people in his village. So it's just incredible to learn how people live. So things could have been better, but I will not regret going to Northwest Territories and hunting Arctic wolf with Kyler Nelson.